9 o'clock, so let's go ahead and call to order the meeting of special council meeting for November 2nd, 2020. Following the call to order, let's do the Pledge of Allegiance.
Point of order, Mr. Bassett, I would ask that John Abrams take over this meeting as senior member of the governing body, and according to the orders that we received, which claim you are no longer eligible to run this meeting. Section 12 says, until such time as the court orders for judgment against defendant John Bassett, removing him from the office of mayor for the town of Edgewood are set aside or otherwise vacated, the town of Edgewood shall be governed and operated by the remaining members of its duly elected governing body. At this time, I ask that John Abrams take over as running this meeting.
Mr. Rael, you want to weigh in on that?
Mr. Mayor, if I may, members of the governing body, good morning. It's my opinion that the orders were, again, I think I've made it abundantly clear. I don't think that the case was served properly, and the orders therefore don't have legal effect. However, to the extent that they do, Judge Sanchez Gagné entered a writ of execution against defendant John Bassett, against you, Mayor Bassett, and in that writ, she orders that you are to be removed as mayor of the governing body on November 4th, 2020 at 4:30 p.m. So even if we were to assume that Judge Sanchez Gagné's orders were entered correctly and that the default judgments against you stand, this writ of execution, which is also, in my opinion, not the correct method to remove a mayor from office, but even if we were to assume, for argument's sake, that this writ of execution stands, it removes you as mayor on November 4th, 2020 at 4:30 p.m. So it's my legal opinion that you're still mayor of the town of Edgewood and can serve in that capacity until that time, and until the judge, hopefully, depending on how this all resolves today, no one's going to be happy with the outcome. So somebody's not going to be happy with the outcome either way, but her writ of execution orders them to remove you as mayor on November 4th, 2020 at 4:30 p.m. So, in my opinion, Mr. Mayor, you're mayor until that time.
Okay, my second point then is conflict of interest. You definitely have a conflict in this matter, and I would like you to recuse yourself and leave the room and let John Abrams take over the meeting.
I so decline.
Mr. Rael.
Yes,
as far
Council.
as the writ of execution, that's essentially like an eviction. It's the date and time is of no matter. Inside of the order, she specifically states that it will be the rest of the governing body members running the town. And just because the sheriff is coming Wednesday at 4:30 does not mean that John Bassett is mayor. She's made that abundantly clear. So this would be an illegal act in violation of the court order.
So, Councilor Armillo, in your motion to intervene, you requested specific relief, and the relief that you requested was then different than what your order read. You added a whole bunch of things into your order. You refused to send me a copy of it in advance, as you stated in your email. You provided me a courtesy copy after you had submitted it to the court, but you didn't feel I was entitled to notice as town attorney. Therefore, I didn't get to comment on it, even though we had discussed it in advance. So there's a bunch of things in here in this order that were not the relief you requested in your motion. In your motion, you asked to intervene and to strike my pleadings, which she did grant you that relief, but then you added in a bunch of other stuff in here. it's up to the other members of the governing body if they want to.
That's how I always understood it. It's up to the members of the board to decide who can participate in the meeting.
Right, so it's up to the other members of the governing body to determine if they feel that this order was entered correctly. I've stated my opinion on that. And again, Counselor, you didn't provide me the courtesy of allowing me to review the order ahead of time and to speak with you about what should and should not have been in the order. I will say, Counselors, that for your knowledge, this is an order that was signed by the judge, by Judge Maria Sanchez-Gagne. I don't think the order was entered correctly. I don't think they followed legal procedure. I don't think that any of the defendants in this case have been properly served. Judge Maria Sanchez-Gagne refused to hear my arguments on that. But this is an order signed by Judge Sanchez-Gagne, which the purpose of the special meeting and the closed session is to go into closed session and discuss these matters. I would advise that we go into closed session, discuss the matters in detail, and then at that point in time, you all can make your decision as to how you'd like to proceed and whether or not you feel Mayor Bassett has a conflict. When as a point, since you called a point of order, Councilor Abraham, you can make a motion to the governing body that Mayor Bassett has a conflict and ask the governing body to vote that he has a conflict. It's up to you if you would like to wait until we discuss it in the closed session, or if you'd like to make that motion now.
I would like to make that motion now to request a vote of the governing body to decide if Mr. Bassett can participate in this meeting, if he can chair this meeting, and if you feel he has a conflict of interest.
Got a second?
No second.
Motion's been made and second to ask me to recuse from the meeting, and whether or not I have a conflict of interest. What was the other one?
That you leave this meeting.
That I leave the meeting.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like that to be done by a roll call vote.
Right. Do it on a roll call vote. Start over there. Counselor Jaramillo.
Aye.
Counselor Abraham.
Aye.
Counselor Abrams.
Nay.
Counselor Holly.
Nay.
Have a tie vote. Fails for lack of a majority.
I believe, okay.
Well, yeah, so the motion has failed for lack
Lack
of
of a majority.
So, Mr. Royale, I did want to have a chance to respond to what you were saying earlier. That you had no standing with the court. That's why legally it has to be done that way.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
a point of order. I believe we've already done a point of order here, and I don't believe this is a discussion for open session at this particular point in time. I would like to move forward with approval of the agenda, please, or the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let's do the
whichever-
Pledge of Allegiance.
Excuse me, I have the floor, and this is inappropriate to shut down this point of order.
Counselor, let's do that, and we can get into the closed session and discuss this stuff. Let's do the Pledge of Allegiance.
Mr. Mayor,
Excuse me.
let's let Councilor Jaramillo get her point out, because this is all going to be contested, and I don't want there to be any argument that she did not get her chance to speak. So go ahead, Councilor Jaramillo, please finish.
The items that you referred to that were extra and added in were because they came out of the judge's mouth herself. She ordered those things. So it wasn't something that I just made up and entered in for my own personal benefit. I put in there exactly during the hearing what she said, and it's verifiable. So she did say those things. She did say that John Bassett is no longer mayor. She did say that the remaining governing body members are to be leading the town and having this meeting. So that is the reason why I believe that this is really, we have a member of the public here trying to chair this meeting, and this could really invalidate all of the actions of this meeting based on not what I'm saying, but what the judge said. Okay, this is not a personal thing by me. This is what the judge said.
I'm not taking it personally, Councilor. May I respond?
Yes.
What the judge said at the hearing was that her her order for default judgment against the town of Edgewood and her order for default judgment, for summary judgment against Mayor Bassett are still in effect. What those orders require are that the town seek a writ of mandamus to remove the mayor from office. The town has not yet sought that writ of mandamus. If the judge felt like that writ of like that she had already removed the mayor from office, she would not have signed this writ of execution ordering the sheriff to remove the mayor from office on a specific date at a specific time. Again, I'm not taking any of it personally. I'm just giving the advice the way that I believe this is all played out.
I think, Mr. Ryle, what you are missing is the quo warranto, immediate removal. That part. That's what you're not addressing here. That part removed him immediately. He became disqualified from office. So that's a separate issue from the writ of mandamus, okay?
Right, and again, Counselor, and none of this is personal, it's my advice that neither the town nor the mayor were properly served after the Keytown order to lift the seal was entered, and in my opinion, the orders have no effect because of that.
And you did argue that to the judge, but she didn't go your way.
Right, and she ordered us to have this meeting.
She ordered us to have a meeting. You are
meeting.
in defiance of her order yet again.
Well, she ordered us to have a meeting. Would you like for me to read what she ordered?
She ordered us to have this meeting without
Right, it's in,
John Bassett. She said for us to have this meeting with the remaining members of the duly elected governing body.
Yep,
yeah, it does say in number 12.
I've given my advice as best I can. I know that no matter what, half this governing body is not going to be happy. So I've given my advice as best I can. Councilor Armijo, you've had a chance to respond. I would suggest we move forward.
Thank you. One other point of order. I did want to ask who called this meeting at this date and time and with these agenda items.
I believe you asked for the meeting.
Mr. Mayor, I received a call from Juan stating that he received an email from Councilor Jaramillo requesting that we have a meeting as soon as possible. With most of these agenda items, although I would like to point out that she did ask for some limited personnel matters also to be on the agenda. My understanding is that Mr. Torres asked Councilor Jaramillo for more specifics so that he could properly fill out the agenda with what the personnel matters would be. And it's my understanding, Councilor, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that there was no response from you about that. But that's how the meeting was called.
Okay, so on that part, the email back said that he needed some more information, I believe, from you and from me on that item, which I did not get back to him on the limited personnel matters because I thought there's enough to tackle, here today. However, there's items also added on here like the writ of execution, and then for the public's sake, I really wanted to have a discussion about districting and how we are going to move forward from this point. And he didn't need my response on that. That's not on here today. So since it does require us for the special meeting to have 3 in concurrence for the date and time and meeting and agenda items, I would say that this meeting is even illegal for that matter. So that's just what I wanted to point out. I did not agree. He never reached out to me with, here's our time options, here's dates. We're adding this, we're removing this. No communication whatsoever. My
understanding, Councilor, is after you requested the meeting with the agenda items, and I spoke with Juan, Mr. Torres talked to Mayor Bassett, and Mayor Bassett called the meeting for the time and place. And your agenda items, except for the 2 that you mentioned, are included on the agenda. My understanding about the districting issue is that Mr. Torres was not going to be here today because he's off on personal leave, and so he was unable to address that item on the agenda for today's meeting. But I think that because the mayor called the meeting for the time and place, which was a correctly called meeting, the public was properly noticed under the Open Meetings Act, The agenda was published in time. We've met the 72-hour notice rule, and the governing body has showed up, along with the mayor as the head of the governing body, has showed up today. And so I think the meeting
So
can move
just for
forward.
the record, and my point of order is that the governing body, which is us four, it takes three of us to call the meeting and agree upon the meeting, and that did not happen. So in my opinion, the mayor is not mayor.
You're not the governing body.
We are.
You're the council.
We are the governing body according to the judge.
You're the
order.
council.
Okay, but we're not, Council, your point's been made. I understand your point, but I don't think we're going to get anywhere arguing about it. I would just, Mr. Mayor, if the majority of the governing body wants to move forward with the meeting,
Let's move forward.
with the meeting.
Move forward.
And Councilor, you feel like your point's been heard, correct?
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think we need to make a motion then to move forward. If I had to make a motion to not, then I think there needs to be a motion.
No, I
to
don't
move
think there
forward.
does. If that failed, then we need to move on.
Right, the meeting is properly noticed and can move forward.
Pledge of Allegiance. Let's get that over with. Flag in that picture
Where
there.
have we a flag?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I salute the
Salute the flag of the state of New Mexico, the symbol of perfect friendship among united cultures. Next item then is the approval of the agenda. We have one request for one change. Council's down on the action items. It would be moving item D up to where item A and slide item A, B, and C down.
Okay.
So I'll entertain a motion on that.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve the agenda with the change as stated.
I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the agenda with the change of moving item D forward to where item A was, and sliding item A, B, and C down one notch. Do a roll call vote.
Discussion, please.
Okay.
I do have two items. First, I would like to make a motion to allow public comment, to add public comment to this agenda before 3A. I make that motion.
How does that work? Is that a friendly amendment to the?
No, it's just a motion
Well,
and a second, and we vote.
Yeah, so do you have to see if your motion has a second, Mr. Mayor, and then a vote to see if you guys want to allow.
You got a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to add a public comment item to the agenda in front of item A. Do a roll call vote on it. Counselor Jaramillo?
Aye.
Counselor Abraham?
Aye.
Counselor Abrams?
Nay.
Counselor Holly?
Nay.
Item fails for lack of a majority.
A discussion, why are we making this change? At whose request?
Making what change with that?
I believe Mr.
Moving-
Rael
moving-
wanted to-
Rearranging the order.
I believe
What
he
is
wanted,
to be accomplished by this?
The purpose in moving the item up is because I feel like that would be the correct
it might inform the other
order,
ones.
the correct order to move forward, because if the town does not vote, if the governing body does not vote on item D, it will affect items A, B, and C. So I asked if we could move that item up.
So you have essentially changed our agenda?
No, Counselor, I've not. I made a suggestion. There was a motion made.
There'll
by
have to be a
Counselor
vote on
Abrams.
it.
There was a second made by Counselor Holly. There will be a vote by the governing body. And I have not changed the agenda, Counselor Abraham. All I've done is move an item up. I suggested that we move an item up, and then the governing body will make a motion and vote on that. So I have not changed it.
Take the vote, Counselor.
Excuse me, I mentioned that I had two items. I got to mention one, which was public comment that was voted down by you three. The second is that I want to know why we are dealing with the writ of execution. So this is for
I think he can
John
explain
Bassett
that.
personally. Excuse me, I have the floor. This is for John Bassett personally. The town is not being removed, okay? So the writ of execution deals with him personally and this is a conflict for you to even vote on. So what would the action even be on this writ of execution that you have added to the agenda?
I think he can
We'll
tell
just-
us that in closed session.
Council will discuss that in closed session. It's a writ that affects the entire town, and so I'll discuss that with you in closed session, and then you, once properly informed, the governing body can come out and decide what action, if any, they want to take regarding the writ of execution.
I understand there will be discussion there, but in order for me to understand why this is on the agenda, what type of action are you asking for?
Well, I'm going to inform the governing body about what the writ of execution would mean for the town, and then the question is going to be if the town wants to take any action regarding the writ of execution.
Let's call for the vote. Counselor Jaramillo,
Nay.
Counselor Abraham,
Nay.
Counselor Abrams,
Aye.
Counselor Holly.
Aye.
Got a tie vote. Mayor votes aye. Next item is closed session. As promotion and roll call vote pursuant to New Mexico SA 1978 10-15-1H7. The following will be discussed in closed session. Pending litigation, specifically State of New Mexico, County of Santa Fe, First Judicial District, case number D101 CV 2020-00328. I will entertain a motion on this one.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to go into closed session pursuant of NMSA 1978, Section 1015H7, to discuss the pending litigation as stated.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to go into closed session. We'll do a roll call vote on this one. Counselor Abraham,
Nay.
Counselor Abrams,
Aye.
Counselor Jaramillo,
Nay.
and Counselor Holly.
Aye.
Have another tie vote. Mayor votes aye. We're in closed session.
Mr. Mayor, where will the closed session take place?
Over in Carlos' office. Okay, we're back from closed session. I'll entertain a motion to go back into open session.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to go back into open session as pursuant of NMSA 1978, Section 1015-1H7. The item on the agenda, pending litigation, specifically the State of New Mexico, County of Santa Fe, First Judicial District, case number D101 CV 2020-00328 was discussed, and no decisions were made in closed session.
A second.
Motion's been made and second to come back into open session as pursuant to NMSA 1978, Section 10-15-1H7, that the only issue discussed in there was pending litigation, specifically State of New Mexico, County of Santa Fe, First Judicial District, case number D101 CB 2020-00328. And that no items beyond that were discussed. Got a motion and a second. We'll do a roll call. Start here. Counselor Holly.
Aye, and I so affirm. No decisions were made.
Okay. Counselor Abrams.
Aye, I so affirm.
Counselor Abraham.
Aye. I so affirm.
Counselor Jaramillo.
Aye, and I also affirm.
And for the mayor, I also affirm that that was the only thing that was discussed. Okay, now that we're back in open session, we move to action items. And per the approval of the agenda, the first item up is discussion, consideration, action on hiring an attorney to represent Mayor Bassett in his official capacity, Mayor of the Town of Edgewood, in case number D101 CB 2020-00328, State of New Mexico ex rel. Thomas McGill et al. Versus John Bassett et al.
Mr. Mayor, I've discussed in the closed session with the governing body my recommendation, and I would ask for a motion due to the emergent nature of needing to respond to the orders that have been issued. Due to the emergent, I want to make sure that I'm being heard. Due to the emergent nature and having to respond to the orders that have been issued in this lawsuit, I would ask that the governing body hire an attorney to represent Mayor Bassett in his official capacity. My understanding, Mr. Mayor, is that you've been in contact with a law firm by a lawyer by the name of Daniel Mackey, and his law firm is Mackey Law and Policy. And I would recommend that the governing body hire Mr. Mackey to defend the mayor in his individual capacity on a contract under the procurement code that is less than under the professional representation provision in the procurement code that allows for a contract to be entered into between the governing body and between the town and the professional, the attorney, for less than $60,000. That's what I would ask that the town entertain a motion to do at this
Have a
time.
motion?
I have a motion that John Bassett recuse himself from this action due to conflict of interest.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to have John Bassett recused from this item due to a conflict of interest. Do a roll call vote. Counselor Jaramillo?
Aye.
Counselor Abrams? Abraham?
Aye.
Counselor Abrams?
Nay.
Counselor Holly?
Nay.
Motion fails for lack of a majority. I'll now entertain that motion that Mr. Rael talked about.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to hire an attorney to represent Mayor Bassett in his official capacity as mayor of the town of Edgewood in the case. I wish to refer to the case here forward in our session today. Case number D101 CV 202000328, the state of New Mexico, X Earl Thomas McGill et al. Versus John Bassett et al. And that the firm mentioned be retained, and
What was
that
the name of it?
Mackey Law and Policy.
that Mackey Law and Policy be retained in capacity to defend the mayor.
We got a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve hiring of an attorney to represent Mayor Bassett in his official capacity as mayor of town of Edgewood. The firm identified was Mackey
Law and Policy.
Law and Policy.
Roll call vote.
Roll call.
Discussion.
Discussion.
Has the town obtained 3 quotes from other attorneys?
May I
I
answer
think the
that,
town's done anything.
Mr. Mayor?
Go ahead.
We're moving. I understand your concern under the procurement code.
Well, because the motion included a specific firm, so I just want to make sure that we are in compliance with our procurement policy and that the town would be, in this case, receiving the best possible value.
So to answer your question, Counselor, yes, I have discussed I reached out to several law firms that I know are competent in this area and who practice in this area defending governing bodies and their members and governmental entities. I have discussed it with several different attorneys. The firms that I discussed it with are Mackey Law and Policy, Pete Domenici Jr., I don't know the name of his law firm, and Moss George, which is the attorney there was Jordan George. Mr. Mack, they are all very competent attorneys. Mr. Mackey has agreed to work for the rate that the town currently pays my law firm, which I think is a valuable rate for the town. I think that was done by RFP, and you got the best value when you issued that RFP. To answer your question.
And then does this law firm report directly to you?
No, absolutely not. I want to make that clear, Counselor. This law firm will be representing the mayor and not the governing body. The law firm will report to the mayor and not to the governing body, and I will be representing the governing body and will not direct the defense of the mayor in any way, shape, or form. I will report to the governing body, and this law firm will report to the mayor in his capacity.
Is everything in this lawsuit his official capacity?
Counselor, as you and I have discussed, it is my opinion in reading the allegations in the complaint that the actions that they are alleging that the mayor took all were actions he took as mayor of the governing body, and therefore were taken in his official capacity.
Call for the vote. Counselor Jaramillo?
Can you repeat the motion, please?
It was discussion, consideration, action on hiring an attorney to represent Mayor Bassett in his official capacity as mayor of the town of Edgewood in case number D101 CV 2020-00328. And the firm in discussion was the Mackey
Law and Policy.
Mackey Law and Policy.
And to do what exactly?
To defend the mayor and from the allegations contained in the amended complaint.
Nay.
Counselor Abraham?
Nay.
Counselor Abrams?
Aye.
Counselor Hawley?
Aye.
We have a tie vote. Mayor votes aye.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The next item on the agenda, Mr. Mayor, is discussion, consideration, and action on representation for the town of Edgewood in case number D101 CV 2020-00328, State of New Mexico, ex-rel Thomas McGill et al. Versus John Bassett et al. What I am asking specifically for in this action item, Mr. Mayor, is permission to defend the town and the allegations raised in this amended complaint, and the first steps that I would like to take as I've discussed with the governing body are to move to set aside the default judgment against the town of Edgewood, to move to quash the writ of execution, and other steps necessary to there forward to defend the town as necessary, in my judgment as town attorney, in defending the town of Edgewood and the allegations against it in this complaint.
Since the mayor has a conflict of interest in this matter where it benefits him, I would like to move that he recuse himself from this action.
Second.
Counselor, we've discussed this, but I'll say it again for the record. I don't think it has been made clear that the mayor has any conflict of interest at this point in time. However, you are free to make your motion, which you did.
Motion's been made and second to ask the mayor to remove himself from this item. We'll do a roll call vote. Start over there. Counselor Jaramillo?
Aye.
Counselor Abraham?
Aye.
Counselor Abrams?
Nay.
Counselor Hawley?
Nay.
Motion fails for lack of a majority. Okay, so the motion then was to approve, or
Mr. Mayor?
Go ahead.
I make a motion to approve the town's contracted law firm of Robles, Rael, and Anaya to defend the town in the case, as stated earlier, and to do so with
and what were the
all vigor.
what was the specific things you wanted?
Well, to proceed as
the duly
appointed town attorney.
contracted attorney of record for the town of Edgewood to defend us in this lawsuit.
We got a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve having the attorneys, or the law firm of Robles, Ryle, and Anaya, the town's contracted law firm, represent with vigor the town of Edgewood in the case number D101-CV-2020-00328.
Discussion.
Go ahead.
So, Mr. Ryle, you would be defending the town minus the mayor in these actions? Because the mayor will have his own attorney?
Correct, Counselor. So I'm going to be.
So you would meet in the future with just the 4 members of council?
I think you're going to have to do that on a case by case.
I think it's going to depend on what evidence is proffered during the defense of the lawsuit. Should it become clear, Counselor, that there is a conflict between the mayor and the members of the council, I would recommend that I meet solely with the council, should that become clear. Yes.
Also, I thought that this was the one where you defined representation as setting aside default judgment.
Well, what I said was that the first steps I would like to take are to set aside the default judgment that was entered against the town, and to to quash the writ of execution that was entered, removing the mayor from office. I will also have to file an answer to the amended complaint once those are set aside, and any other necessary motions that I feel are necessary as town attorney, as your hired professional, to defend the town of Edgewood and to investigate the allegations made against the town in the lawsuit.
Okay, so you also stated that the mayor's attorney will defend him if he decides to set these aside. So why do both of you need to set them aside?
There's judgment against the town, and then there's a judgment against the mayor, and those are separate. And so, because I don't represent Mayor Bassett, I'll be moving to set aside the judgment against the town, and his attorney, who doesn't represent the town, will be moving to set aside the judgment against the mayor.
And is it a judgment against the town in the way that the judge has just decided that he has been removed and that we need to enforce our ordinance? Why would we fight that? It doesn't make sense to fight. It's not a judgment against the town, it's a judgment against John Bassett with the clarification that we need to enforce our ordinances.
Counselor, as we've discussed, I don't think that determination has been made. No evidence has been proffered to the judge. No hearing has been had. Therefore, no due process has been provided to either the town or the mayor. And so that's why I'd like to set those aside and let the lawsuit take its natural course.
Why would we fight against following the rule of law?
Counselor, the rule of law hasn't been established yet. No, there has been no evidence proffered to make for you as a governing body to make any determinations whatsoever, and it would be irresponsible of the governing body to make a determination based on no evidence at all. Yeah. That's not due process.
It was only the evidence of what the judge said.
Well, the judge didn't ever hear evidence.
No, I'm not talking about the evidence. I'm talking about her decision. Because you're not asking us to defend evidence and all of that. That's not the decision. The decision is about the judge's order.
Right, and the judge's order was simply to enter default judgment against the
I
town.
think it's flawed.
Despite the fact that, in my opinion, as I've stated on numerous occasions, the town was not properly served following the lifting of the seal, which is what is required when you file a key town lawsuit, which is what the plaintiffs in this case elected to do. And so I'm moving to defend the town on that basis.
I have one more question. So if you're defending the town, and as part of that, John Bassett is part of the governing body, and John Bassett has his own attorney, isn't he getting double representation paid for by the taxpayers of Edgewood?
No, Counselor, he's not.
You said you would not know if he can be included in closed session meetings until after you have done an investigation. Well, you would set this aside prior to that investigation is what you're asking us to do, correct?
There's been allegations made against the mayor and allegations made against the town. The allegations require that the mayor have his own attorney. Therefore, he's not getting double representation. He's getting representation, and then the town of Edgewood is getting representation by my firm.
But the town, as in Councilor Hawley, Councilor Abrams, myself, and Councilor Jaramillo, have no charges against us here.
No,
Only
you simply,
the charges
you have a,
against the
you have
mayor
a,
in his official capacity.
and you have a judgment rendered against you illegally. And you have a duty as a governing body of a governmental entity to investigate whether or not the allegations made are true, so that
Which
you,
is what we were hoping you would be doing
What-
since the first time we were served.
It just
you
seems to
haven't
me that
been
there's no
served.
further action required on this because the judge already made her determination in accordance with the law.
I don't agree with that, and we've discussed that ad nauseum, Counselor. I don't think you and I are going to see eye to eye on this. I don't see any benefit to rehashing what we've just discussed for the last hour and a half. So I would,
Let's go ahead and call on the vote.
I would like to see something in here that says you will do the investigation before you quash it.
well, you can't allow a writ to stand that is not a proper writ that was issued without any evidence against any of you.
Because you open the door to somebody else trying the
Against
same
any-
thing.
Mr. Mayor, let me finish. You can't allow a writ to stand against any member of the governing body that was issued illegally and without any evidence. You have a duty to determine that evidence and then make your decision. So the writ needs to be quashed, and the default judgment needs to be set aside, in my opinion.
What if we don't want to set it aside?
Then you can vote no, and you can then what I'm asking for fails, and then I don't get to go and set it aside, and the default judgment would stand. So I'm asking the governing body for direction on how to proceed.
Can you make the motion more specific to know what we're voting to set aside or not set aside, or what actions you're proposing?
I'm proposing any and all actions necessary to defend the town, to set aside the default judgment entered against it, and to quash the writ of execution that was entered as well. And then to defend the town, and in order to conduct an investigation as into the allegations made in the complaint, including filing an answer to the complaint, doing discovery into the allegations made in the complaint, filing any necessary motions, filing any depositions that need to be taken, all the steps that I, as your hired legal counsel, need to take in order to properly defend the town.
With the mayor being part of that at this point.
The mayor has his own counsel, and that
Right,
counsel
but
will
you
make.
also said he's a member of the town of Edgewood.
Yes, Counselor, he is a member of the town of Edgewood.
Okay. I just need.
So we've got a motion on the floor then to restate it, I guess. This is the one on the writ of execution.
No, this is not the one
This
on
is
the
the
writ
A.
of execution.
This is on,
This is
A.
On
to-
number
3.
A, yeah. Okay,
The motion was to use the law firm that the town has under its already contracted services to defend the town in the action stated, the case, as I stated earlier, vigorously.
And I vigorously don't want to go against what the judge ordered us to do.
And Counselor, vote.
The judge
vote
ordered
the
us
way
to
you-
do this.
you determine. Vote the way you feel.
And Mr. Mayor, I want to state for the record, this lawsuit is against the governing body for the town of Edgewood. We need to have legal representation. I'm not a lawyer, none of us are, and that's my statement.
I would like to make a motion that we get a different firm.
get who?
Get a different firm to represent the town of Edgewood.
We've already got a motion on the floor.
And I would like a friendly amendment to that.
I don't accept the friendly amendment and ask for the vote.
Counselor Jaramillo, how do you vote?
Nay.
Counselor Abraham?
Nay.
Counselor Abrams?
Aye.
Counselor Holly?
Aye.
We have a tied vote. The mayor votes aye.
Next item on the agenda, Mr. Mayor, is maybe redundant, but discussion, consideration, and action. I wanted to be clear on the writ of execution that was issued in case number D101CV 2020-00328, State of New Mexico, ex-rel Thomas McGill et al. V. John Bassett et al. I would like permission to immediately move to quash the writ of execution that the judge signed in this matter.
I move that John Bassett is disqualified from voting as he is no longer mayor at this time. Besides that, he is conflicted. So
Second.
I ask him to recuse and remove himself.
I'll deny, or I'm not going to recuse. We have a motion to ask Mayor Bassett to not participate in this agenda item, and a second. We'll take a roll call vote. Counselor Jaramillo?
Aye.
Counselor Abraham?
Aye.
Counselor Abrams?
Nay.
And Counselor Holly?
Nay.
We have no majority. It fails for lack of a majority. I
Mr.
will
Mayor,
entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I would move that the town's duly appointed and contracted attorney move in action against the writ of execution in the case.
Second.
Discussion.
Go ahead.
So on this, again, I feel there's a conflict, as I've stated before. However, as well, the town really doesn't have standing in this matter. The judge stated that we didn't have standing except in count 3 for the writ of mandamus. And I don't know if we need to read that count, but that does not include this writ of execution. And I would point out again that that was not agreed to by 3 members of the governing body to be on the agenda in the first place.
Okay, I'll ask for a roll call vote. Counselor Jaramillo?
Nay.
Counselor Abraham?
Nay.
Counselor Abrams?
Aye.
Counselor Holly?
Aye.
We have a tied vote. Mayor votes aye.
Mr. Mayor, next item is discussion, consideration, and action on the writ of mandamus requested in the amended complaint in case number D101CV 2020-00328, State of New Mexico, ex-rel Thomas McGill et al. Versus John Bassett et al. And as I stated earlier, Mr. Mayor, I would like permission as the town attorney to defend the action, to investigate the allegations in the complaint, amended complaint, which requests that a writ of mandamus be issued against the town of Edgewood, and to defend, vigorously defend that action, do the investigation, and come back to the governing body with a recommendation as to my findings during my representation of the town in this matter.
Again, I would move that John Bassett is disqualified from voting here and is conflicted, and I ask him to recuse himself.
Second.
And motion's been made and seconded to ask the mayor to recuse himself. I will not in this matter. I will ask for a motion on this one, though.
Aye.
Have we made a motion on it?
Do a roll call vote?
Oh, no. Are you talking about your motion to ask him to recuse?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
aye.
Nay.
Nay.
Counselor Abrams, nay. Counselor Holly, nay. Dies for lack of a majority.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to allow the town's attorney to investigate the allegations made in the complaint, to determine sufficient allegations, and to investigate and return that information to the council regarding the writ of mandamus.
Council or governing body?
Governing body, sorry.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to have the town attorneys investigate and do due diligence or look into the writ of mandamus.
The allegations. in
The allegations.
complaint requesting a writ of mandamus.
Oh, the allegations requesting a writ of mandamus, and return to the governing body with their findings and a recommendation. Is that it?
That's it.
Mr. Wright, I have discussion.
Go ahead.
So when you do this discussion and when you do this investigation, you will then bring it, I'm confused, are you bringing it to the town of Edgewood, to the governing body, or to the council members of the governing body?
As we discussed, Counselor, I'm going to do the investigation, make a determination as to the veracity of the allegations against Mayor Bassett. And then I will bring that, depending on what the investigation shows, I will bring that back to the governing body for you to make a determination as to whether or not you want to seek the writ or not.
So my question is, which members of the governing body, all 5 of us or just 4 of us?
Well, depending on what the investigation shows, it would either be just the members of the town council, or it would be the entire governing body, depending on what the investigation shows, Counselor.
And this is strictly on the nepotism violation.
On the allegations in the amended complaint seeking a writ of mandamus against Mayor Bassett, which all the allegations in the amended complaint seeking the writ of mandamus.
Okay, we've got a motion on.
So what if your investigation shows he's only, then only part of it, the nepotism part is true, then would he be part of the governing body to make that decision?
If the investigation showed that any of the allegations were true, then there would be a conflict, and I would recommend to the governing body that Mayor Bassett not be allowed to participate, if it were to show that.
So at this point, is this motion only to set aside, to move to set aside the writ of mandamus? Because
No,
There isn't a writ
we've already-
yet.
We've already had that.
Excuse me, I have the floor. Because, as Member Abraham has just stated, it seems that there's another step after the setting aside. If it even gets set aside, I don't know. but then there's a whole new set of steps and facts after that.
What's your question, Counselor?
So wouldn't this motion be just if we want this, the judge is telling us to do the right thing, and the judge is telling us to enforce the ordinance, and so this motion is, do we fight the judge on this or not?
I don't know. That is not it,
Or
Counselor.
this to set aside
No, we've
is
already
what the words you were saying, right?
we've already discussed the set aside of the default judgment.
No, I mean the
This
writ.
is to invest. We've already discussed setting aside the writ of execution.
No, the writ of mandamus.
There is no writ of mandamus issued in this case yet. What I'm asking is for permission as town attorney during the defense of the lawsuit, which I've already been given permission to do, to investigate the allegations, seeking the writ of mandamus, and to come back to you with my findings.
What did she tell us to do regarding that one?
That's not an issue right now. What I'm asking for is what I just stated, Counselor.
The ability to investigate to see if we need to enforce a writ of mandamus against ourselves.
If you need to allow the writ to issue, or if you want to contest the writ.
Okay.
So this is not a decision on that, is what I'm trying to clarify.
No, this is for me to investigate it and bring that back to you. And at that time,
Then we decide.
having done your due diligence as a governing body and having heard evidence, at that time you'll make a decision as a governing body.
We got a motion, right?
Yes, we do.
Okay, let's call for the vote on it.
Mr. Mayor, is there a second on the?
I thought I seconded.
Okay.
Counselor Holly seconded it. Counselor Jaramillo.
Nay.
Counselor Abraham.
Nay.
Counselor Abrams.
Aye.
Counselor Holly.
Aye.
We have a tie vote, the mayor votes aye. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to adjourn. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.